After the time trial, another trial, one of attrition. Nearly 202 kilometres laying ahead of the field, destination Virey, who kept something in the bank after the race of truth against the clock yesterday. It was a big question. Alaphilippe had waved at the crowd, of course, during the time trial and was to do so again today, ultimately. But the nerves were there because there was so much at stake, potentially for a breakaway.
Talking to the riders ahead of stage 6 and looking at the profile, it definitely offers up a considerable opportunity for the breakaways. All the riders that I've spoken to suggested that it is a day for the break, so there's numerous riders from multiple teams who've still got something to try and take away from this race. So we're anticipating a very aggressive opening few kilometres. Also interestingly too, we think that Johnny Milan is going to focus on the first intermediate sprint, and after that, that's when the race could explode. Will we see a change in the general classification? Will we see a solo winner? Who knows?
Would it be action stations right from the very beginning? All jerseys owned by Tadej Pogačar, except for the young rider's jersey. That, of course, on the shoulders of Evenepoel, who'd taken the time trial the day prior. Jonathan Milan sporting green and, of course, hunting points, and would make a big one, surely, at the first intermediate. How hungry was he? And would this be a question of survival for absolutely everybody, with a parcours that looked flat when you see the map, but then when you come to the altimetry, got very scary indeed. Over 3,500 metres of altitude gain, that's like an alpine test. Appropriate then that we're in, of course, the Normandy Alps. Not high Alps, you understand, but certainly plenty of climbing. And just look at the altimetry here, virtually no area of flat racing. This was to prove to be one of the most nervy and dramatic days that we have witnessed in the Tour de France, let alone any race so far this season. They were battling to get in the breakaway, but not before an intermediate sprint had indeed been contested. Biniam Girmay's Intermarché 1T were trying to tee him up, but ultimately it was the man in green, wearing that almost by rights, and certainly moving into that position of, well, would it be ownership by the end of the day? Building his assembly of points in that competition suddenly dropped back, but those who were ready for a breakaway waited for that sprint and then slingshot themselves up the road. Ben Healy was one, Quinn Simmons another, and they were to be the busiest amongst 6, 7, 8 incarnations of the breakaway. It took a long time to finally establish itself, and some of the quick men, including of course the man who was sporting green, found themselves off the back. Around 48 kilometres an hour for the first hour, it was absolutely relentless. So indeed was the likes of Ben Healy and Quinn Simmons. They were marking just about everything out, and try as they might, others then finally managed to snap the elastic. One of those being the Giro D'Italia winner, Simon Yates, and a quality group went up the road. He was there, Will Barter, Tejeda was there for Astana, Michael Storer, Dunbar, Quinn Simmons, Ben Healy, of course, Ben Healy. In the pink always, the man in the yellow, Tadej Pogačar. He was starting to do the maths. Would it be worthy of handing over this jersey to a powerhouse in the break of Mathieu van der Poel? Well, the parcours surely would have suited Van der Poel, but the pace of the day and the amount of times that we just had to drive to get in a breakaway was something outstanding. Eddie Dunbar came along to join the fun and make it 2 Irishmen up front. Storer deciding to hunt down Mountain's points as well, and indeed they were sprinting for them. When would this cohesion of the breakaway break down? They had a handsome margin with just under 45 kilometres to go. We're on a flat-ish section, and that's when Ben Healy decided that he was going to test everybody. They all looked at each other. Nobody wanted to guide somebody else into an advantageous position. And so it was to be a battle of attrition as we went over the final climbs, all backstacked at the end of the day. 4 categorised tests plus a nasty ramp at the very last. 12% they had to deal with on more than one occasion. And it was Quinn Simmons and indeed Michael Storer that were chasing this man down. Ben Healy had gone. 48 seconds became a minute and 20, became even more. This was absolutely remarkable. As the kilometres went away, so did Healy. Not only building a fabulous lead on the day, but also a place in our hearts, and of course a very good position in the overall classification as well. And dwelling on that classification, Mathieu van der Poel was hoping to be in the yellow jersey at the end of today. We had a race to finish and we were wondering what was happening to Van der Poel when it came to the final climbs. And indeed, where was Tadej Pogačar and the rest of the favourites? Ben Healy underscoring his greatness. He's done it in the Giro D'Italia. He's now done it in the Tour de France. He looked absolutely fantastic. He targeted this day quite clearly. Every single breakaway that tried to go, he was there as a feature. We thought he would run out of juice. It didn't happen, and he absolutely nailed it. Chapeau to him. A phenomenal performance, to say the very least. Remarkable. Quinn Simmons beat Stora for the sprint. Eddie Dunbar led home the rest of the break. Mathieu van der Poel had faded on the last couple of climbs, and Tadej Pogačar, almost instinctively, he was decided to race against Vingegaard at the very last. Dunbar crossing the line, Simon Yates as well, and we were wondering how things were panning out further down the line. Here was Van der Poel, as we said, struggling on those last tests, almost fell over the line. But what about the chasers? Well, if Tadej Pogačar wanted to give away the jersey, maybe he thought that Van der Poel hadn't struggled so much at the last. He did not want to give anything away, least of all to anyone from rival teams. He was essentially just making sure he finished ahead of Jonas Vingegaard at this moment, and almost, I guess you might say, denied Van der Poel the yellow jersey. What would the countback be? In the end, it was as close as you like, as you're about to find out. But what a day's winner we had. Amazing. Ben Healy has done it, beating Simmons, Stora, Dunbar and Yates. Chapeau.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's really what I've worked all for, like not just this year, just the whole time, It's really, really incredible, and just hours and hours of hard work from so many people, and pay them back today, really, really amazing. This was a stage I circled in the book from the start, and to do it on the first one is really, really amazing.
There's probably a couple of others as well. Van der Poel leads this race, guess what, by 1 second from Tadej Pogačar, with days for Van der Poel coming up. So a new leader in the yellow jersey. What a race we've got, and it is far from over. And you may well know that Van der Poel, the terrain suits him in the days to come, not least the Mur de Bretagne. Big kicker at the end of a very, very tough day. 197 kilometres ahead of the field as we head for stage 7. What a race this has been. What a race we have. It's a treasure, and it's there for us to enjoy. So tomorrow, who's going to spend it? We just don't know. You're going to have to join us right here to find out. Gnarly? Oh yeah, that kicker at the end. The Mur is a famous test. It may only be a category 3, but it hurts.